Dr. Sunder Iyer is a past student and lecturer of the Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, where he has obtained his PhD in banking and finance. He has spent a period of over 15 years under the watchful eyes of Swami. He has spoken numerous times in front of Swami himself. He is the only student to receive a gold medal for yoga from Swami. So devotees, without further ado, let's put our hands together and welcome Dr. Sunder Iyer.
Sri Sai Ram. I offer my most prayerful and humble pranams at the feet of my Sadguru, Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Dear sisters and brothers, this wonderful family of Sai, before I begin, I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Srishti for giving me yet another opportunity to be here and be part of this wonderful birthday Satsangh. So thank you, Srishti. And I also want to take this opportunity to wish him and Prashant the most wonderful birthday and many, many more to come. Speaking about the learnings and the teachings that Baba gave us through his life and through his mission, one never knows where to start, and when one starts, one will never know where to end. So I will neither do justice to both, but somewhere in the middle, hopefully, I'll be able to convey something which is very dear to my heart. And that is, spirituality is the very essence of our life. It's not a pastime, it's not a hobby, but it's the very essence of our lives and the very purpose for which we are here, playing this play of consciousness, if you will. And this is the lesson that Baba taught us. In addition to all the miracles that he performed and the fact that millions claimed him to be an avatar, he said, you are God, you are divine, and that you have to realize is the only purpose for your existence here. And therefore, spirituality then becomes a matter of conviction. It is not a matter of convenience. For most of us, spirituality has become a matter of convenience. Whatever is convenient for us, we do it, and then we name it and cloak it in the form of spirituality. If Shivratri is on a Wednesday, we will say, we are busy on a Wednesday, we cannot miss our work, we cannot miss our TV shows, let's have it on the weekend. If Diwali comes on a Friday, we celebrate it on, Diwali is a national holiday, I guess you can celebrate it on the same day. Almost Navaratri, almost all the festivals, for example, in the Hindu tradition, are based on the lunar calendar. And it follows the path of the moon because the moon has a direct influence on the mind. And there are particular reasons why particular days of the moon are celebrated. But for our convenience, if we move it to a weekend and celebrate it on the weekend, then we miss the entire purpose of that particular spiritual event. And therefore, instead of becoming a spiritual exercise, it becomes an event on the calendar. And we do that with everything, including Baba's birthday. If it is on a Monday, we'll say we'll celebrate it on a Saturday because Monday everybody has to go to work. So we have shifted God around to suit our way of life. Baba would often say, when you look at God's picture, don't drag God into the picture. Take the picture to God. And I would never understand that. It took me a long time to understand that. Meaning, we are bringing God down into the form, into a picture, into what we want. Rather than looking at the picture, your mind lifts up to where God wants you to go. Sai Gita was Baba's pet elephant. And she was always in front of our hostel. We call it the dorm or the hostel where we would stay. And one day Baba was, every time he passes by this elephant, it's amazing. Nobody trained this elephant, but she would hear Swami's car coming a kilometer away, and she would become very restless. And she would be squealing in delight because she would get just a glimpse of Baba passing by. So you can imagine her joy, and this is an elephant. You can imagine a joy when Baba would actually stop and get out and come to her and feed her some chocolates, or he would give her apples and coconuts. And she would be just in bliss, literally. And that was a fascinating sight to see. But even in those moments, Baba would teach us a very profound lesson. Her huge leg would be tied to a tree. And later on, of course, this was very olden days. Later on, she got her own 5-star shed, and she had her own compound, and she lived a glorious life. But this was on those very early days in the mid-80s, in the early 80s. Her leg would be tied to a tree with a simple rope. And Baba would say, look at that. She can break that rope if she wants to. And yet she doesn't. And Baba would explain, you know why? He said when she was a baby and when she came, she was tied with that rope. And as a really small elephant, baby elephant, she didn't have the strength to break that rope. So she conditioned her mind to thinking the moment the rope is tied to me, I will not be able to break it. And because she was convinced that she could not break it, she never broke that rope. She always lived with this belief that that rope cannot be broken. That rope is what ties me to the tree. Even though she had the strength to break it, she chose to believe that she is not able to break it. And Baba would turn around and say, your mind is exactly like this elephant. I am here to tell you that God is inside you. You are divine. But you choose not to believe it. You say, no, I am just a devotee. You are God. So it becomes convenient for us to play this victim role. We love to be victims. Why? Because it's kind of in our DNA. When we wanted to walk, we looked up for help. Somebody helped us. Our parents helped us, taught to walk. When we wanted to speak, we looked up and somebody taught us how to speak. So we looked up for help for everything. And therefore, it is perhaps natural for us to look up to a God who will somehow liberate us from this samsara. But when God comes down in the form of Sadgurus, in the form of teachers, the cosmic consciousness does take birth. We believe that. We have seen that over a number of years, decades, centuries, eons in Indian culture. Comes back to remind us that divinity is within each one of us, and all of us are facets of the same divine. We are waves in the ocean. And that each one of us carry this spark. We choose to say, no, we are just humble devotees. I often say, have any of us seen devotion, for example, is a hallmark of the greatest strength. And the Bhakti Marg is the finest and the royal path to experience this oneness with God. Somebody asked Hanuman, what is your relation with Rama? He said, when I identify myself with my body, this is the Hanuman's answer. When I identify myself with my body, then I am a servant and he is my master. When I identify myself with my mind, then I am a devotee, he is my Lord. But when I sit down in meditation and I become one with my Atmic self, then he and I are one. So this idea of oneness with God is not a permanent thing. Or it could be. But you don't have to worry that, my God, if I become one with God, then how will I work? Who will feed my family? Or how will I see my favorite TV shows? You get everything. Baba would say when you climb, you're trying to climb a shadow, or your shadow is climbing a tree. You climb the real tree, the shadow climbs as well. So don't chase shadow things. Go for the real thing by which everything else is gotten to. So you never see a weak Hanuman. Have you ever seen any picture of Hanuman, any depiction of Hanuman, any reference to Hanuman, any mention to this powerful image of devotion that is taught to us through Ramayana, anywhere in the Ramayana where Hanuman was weak and miserable, we see him as a pillar of strength. In fact, in India, all the wrestlers in every place, they have the big picture or the murti of Hanuman, and they'll bow to him and then start doing their exercises. All the bodybuilding gymnasiums everywhere has Maruti or Hanuman, a symbol of strength and power and wisdom. Jai Hanuman, Jnana Guna Sagar, Jai Kapis Tingu Lok Ujagar, all the three worlds praise him. And he is the embodiment of devotion. Now, when we claim ourselves as devotee, do we see ourselves as strong as Hanuman? If not, what is missing? Conviction. Conviction is what is missing. It's easy to say, play the devotee card and feel weak and say, oh God, I am just a devotee. What can I do? Please help me. Please help me. If Hanuman was like that, he would have never jumped the ocean. But when somebody said, who can jump the ocean? We need to rescue Mother Sita. She's across the ocean. This little monkey put his hand up. Why? Because he was convinced of what? Was he convinced of his powers? No, he saw Jambavan there. He saw all the other Sugriva and all the other stalwarts, the real warriors there. This is how Vyasa explains, this is how Kambaramayan explains, this is how Tulsidas explains so beautifully about the story. At that moment, he realized he was not the doer. That was his conviction, that he is not the doer. It is Ram's mission. He is going to do it. What is there for me? He just picks me. I am merely an instrument, so I will jump because he is the one who is going to take me across. When that conviction comes to you that you are not the doer, then your ifs and buts fall off. And then you allow God to work through you. In fact, you become even more powerful. Arjuna, another warrior. So it is another yuga, another story, but the same lesson taught to us. Krishna, why did he choose Arjuna? Because he said one of my greatest devotees, the greatest devotee is Arjuna. And who was Arjuna? A warrior. Again, you never see a weak Arjuna. You saw him once in the war. Just before the war, he became weak because he felt he was a doer. He said, how can I fight this war? I'm not going to fight for a piece of land. These are my teachers. I cannot do this. This war of righteousness, unrighteousness, I don't want to get into it. I just want to escape. He wanted to play the card of convenience. He said, who am I? Oh my God, I don't want to do this. And if you listen to the first chapter of Gita, or if you read it, it's amazing to see all that he said is all that we say every day in our lives. As to why we are here. We justify why we are normal people, why we are underperforming, why we are not getting the dream of our lives. We don't have to become sannyasis, you know. These epics, these Upanishads, the Vedas, if you understand the essence, India was at the top of the world at one time. We were the richest nation in the world, which is why there's tremendous amount of migration. If you see history, before the invaders came and invaded us, centuries after centuries, looted and plundered our land. Before that, we had all the wealth in the world, all the knowledge in the world. We discovered trigonometry, astronomy, mathematics, everything, metallurgy. We knew zinc and gold. We discovered zinc 4,000 years ago. So all this was already part. So it is not the knowledge of the Upanishads and the knowledge of the Vedas is not to make you underperform, but rather to make you the best performer in the world, in your life. You can achieve whatever you want in your life when you know that you are not the one who is doer, but then you allow yourself to be guided by a higher wisdom. That wisdom which is infinite in its potential, which you call God. And you can ascribe any name to that, Rama, Krishna, Sai, it doesn't matter. At that point, it doesn't matter. It could be a stone, it could be a lingam. A lingam is just a symbolic representation of a stone. Worship a stone as God, it doesn't matter. But in that stone, in that form of Sai, of Krishna, of Rama, of Shiva, of Shakti, in that form, if you see this infinite potential, and then you allow that infinite potential to flow through you, then you become equivalent to Hanuman, you become equivalent to Arjuna, you become fit to be God's instrument. I just want to end with this wonderful lesson I learned with Baba. Baba used to give us, I was in Baba's room for a short period, taking care of his mail and other things. And I used to check his mail after he finishes reading, and then, because he would get 300, 400 mails every day. And so some of them he would read, and then at the end of the day, we would have to clear it to make room for another big bundle that would come the next day by post. This was even in the mid-80s and early 80s. So at night, we would open the envelopes and not read anything, but we would just stare them. But some of the envelopes may contain cash or check or something like that. We would put it aside. That was our job. So in the course of that, I would come across greeting cards that somebody would send Baba, and these cards would have beautiful poems in them. And they would be so nice that I would not feel I didn't have the heart to tear it. So I would keep them aside. One day Baba saw me collecting that. He said, "What is that for?" I just looked at him. I didn't know what to do with it. I couldn't take it. It was not for me. And Baba gave the whole bunch to me. He said, "Keep it." In that one card, one of my favorites was Saint Francis of Assisi's prayer, "Make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. From this moment on, let me not seek to be consoled as I would seek out to console." And it goes on beautifully. So one of the times when I spoke in front of Baba, I recited this prayer at the end of it. And Baba was very happy. He said, "Good prayer, good prayer." And that was always, since the day I got that card from Swami, I decided that should be my prayer. And that has always been the idea as being an instrument. Because I was very inspired by stories of Hanuman and Arjuna. How when you become an instrument, then you have nothing to do. In fact, all the burden is off your head. You just let go and allow the divine energy to guide you. So make me an instrument of thy peace. And so when Baba endorsed me after my talk, a very good prayer, I said, okay, this is it. This is my mantra. And I kept chanting it for many years. About 2 or 3 years later, I got another chance to talk in front of Baba. And in the middle, I did speak a lot more times. So I thought, 3 years ago, I chanted this prayer at the end of my talk. Maybe I'll repeat it again. Baba may not remember that I did it 3 years ago. Because I was running out of material, Every time you had to come up with some poem or something. And this was my favorite, so I said, I'll do it again. So I spoke in front of Baba, and at the end of my talk, once again, I said, "Make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith." Baba gave me namaskar, and everything was over. The next day morning, he came to the veranda. He asked some of the senior devotees, "How did this boy speak?" They said, "Baba, very well," and all that. Then he came to me. He said, "Who are you to order? Make me an instrument of my peace. Make me a cup of coffee. Make me tea. Who are you to tell me that?" I was shocked. I couldn't tell him that was what was printed on the paper. I just looked at him. He said, "May I?" When you want something, you say, "May I have this? May I have that?" Say, "May I be an instrument of that peace?" What does make me? Too much ego. So I said, okay. Now that became my conviction. From that day onwards, I said, "May I be an instrument of that peace?" The "may I" has a subtle, you allow it to happen. You don't ask and sit back waiting for something to happen. You're allowing it to happen. So the flow came, and I loved that. May I be an instrument of that peace? And I carried that on for many years. Towards the end, I think it was 89 or so, I was in Kodaikanal with Baba. And almost every day he would ask me to speak. A whole month, about 45 days passed by, and every day I had to speak. I had to come up with some material or the other. And so I thought, okay, here's my chance to place this prayer again. But this time I know how to do it. It's not "make me," but "may I." And that's what I've been chanting all the time. May I be an instrument of thy peace. So I stood in front of Baba. It was a very small group of people in Baba's room. This is a private kind of session you would have every evening in Kodaikanal. And I spoke in front of Baba. And then I ended up saying, "May I be an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, may I sow love. May I." I thought it was good. I came down, I bent down, I kissed Baba's feet. And when I got up, he looked at me. He said, "How many more days like a beggar you'll go say, 'May I, may I, may I'?" Of course, he told me in Telugu. It was very sweet for him to say, "How many more days like a beggar, may I, may I?" What is this, "may I, may I"? I couldn't tell him, "You told me that." But I just stared at Baba, shocked. This is how the Guru awakens you from one stage of conviction to another. He could have told me this from day one, but he allowed it to sink into your system. When you're ready, he takes you to the next level. And then he said, "How many more days like beggar? When are you going to say, 'I am an instrument of your peace'? Where there is hatred, I sow love. From this day, say that. And from that day until today, I am an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, I so love. It's not make me, it's not may I. So, this is the gift what Baba gives. On his birthday on 1983, November 23rd, he said, there's only 4 or 5 things you want to remember if you want to achieve the purpose of your life. Start saying from this moment, I am God, I am God, I am not different from God. I am Akhanda Parabrahma Swarupa. I am Satchit Ananda Swarupa. Grief and anxiety can never affect me. Fear will not touch me. I am God, I am God, I am not different from God. And he is merely voicing, this is not some new age spiritual thinking that he has brought it upon us. This is merely voicing the 1,000-year-old Vedic teachings that we are inherently divine. And until we wake up to this truth, we will be running from one satsang to another satsang, from one Baba to another Baba, from pleasing Shivas on Mondays and Devis on Fridays, and from one festival to another festival. We will go from one pillar to post without realizing that this God we are searching for is the very essence of who we are. And therefore, let the lessons of Hanuman, let the lessons of Arjuna, let the lessons of Baba, and the lives of these saints and sages inspire us to ask this one question: who am I? What is my purpose on this earth? And the birthdays are the best days to ask. The $1 million question is, who am I? What is my purpose on this earth? And how can I awaken to the highest truth so I can use that highest truth to live life to its fullest extent? Otherwise, I will be going from I can't do this, if only this happens. But between the ifs and the buts and the I can and the I can't, we get caught up in this vicious circle of Maya. And we live our lives and we die. And then we're born again to live the same old ritualistic life. So let this be an occasion where the teachings of Baba, the teachings of Vedas, the teaching of Upanishads get into the very essence of who we are. And every night when we sleep and go to bed, ask for this divine energy within us to awaken and guide us from that one level of conviction to another level of conviction. And slowly but surely, we awaken to this reality that we are God. Thank you. Sai Ram.